All right. Well, why does Maine want people to stay on drugs? They specifically want people to die, it seems, by this new taxpayer-funded program. Here's another example of the state handing out drugs without noticing that drug decriminalization and promoting drugs does not help. In fact, it just makes people die faster. But then as they do that, they pat themselves on the back saying, we're so compassionate. Okay, so this is how compassionate the state of Maine is. They're handing out boofing kits to fentanyl addicts. Boofing is when you shoot drugs up your butthole. I said it. I'm not going to say it again. I'm sorry. I warned you.
Oh, my God.
That's what it is. Yeah. We're not doing it. We're not going to show you how to do it. We're telling you that
no demonstrations.
Maine will teach you how to. No. Not today, honey?
No, Maine will teach you, and they'll hand you a pamphlet on how to do it.
Yes.
And taxpayers will pay for it.
I will show you the pamphlet in just a second. So I warned you, if you're eating something, just set that aside till the next one, because this is on the taxpayers, and I'm going to tell you why the heck someone would do this. So, okay, bufa means fart in Portuguese. What? Why'd you give me that look?
Okay, because that's gross. I don't need to
Yeah,
know.
and so boofing, I don't know if that is related or all. It's a weird word. I don't like it, but now you know how the kids.
Well, what's weird
using.
is we use that word when we were young, like kids in school.
Boofa?
That was a word. Yeah. No, boofing.
Oh.
Like that was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it meant something with butts.
All right.
So,
All right.
All right, let's not go there. So this is from Maine Access Point. It's a taxpayer-funded program that's part of the Maine Recovery Council, and this is real. This is part of the handout that goes with a boofing kit. And here's the actual taxpayers made this, guys. Like, image of the butt and the syringe. And literally, look at the try boofing exclamation point. This is, if you really want to know, then you can screenshot this and look later. And here's the last bit of this. So not only have they done this super catchy, like Saved by the Bell looking flyer, but also they have this info video telling people exactly why somebody should boof.
Oh my God.
I don't know if you use it that way, but here's how they explain it.
So what boofing is inserting drugs into your rectum. And one of the main reasons people do it is because there's a lot of blood vessels in your rectum, a lot of surface area. I always recommend people try boofing.
I always do it.
Switching to snorting can be a little too big of a jump.
I love that because I think also that helps with our minds. So if you're having a really hard time, hitting and it's really starting to you're getting in your head about it and you're starting to get frustrated, just knowing that you do have an option of boofing or booty bumping is I don't know, I think maybe brings a little bit more ease, right? You're like, okay, I'm getting really frustrated. This is really it's not working. Okay, I have this other option too.
Man.
And then if you want to inject later because you really enjoy the rush from injecting, that's fine. But, getting yourself well first can really just take some of that frustration off.
Yeah. She always recommends
I have so many redacted t-shirt ideas right now.
I love that she says she always recommends.
Always.
Like when she's just out at a Starbucks or she's out to dinner. Mm-hmm. She's like, hey, friends, I know we haven't been talking about this for a while, but I always recommend boofing. Yeah. I always recommend that.
I mean, you got to think.
Have you ever boofed your Starbucks?
Mm-hmm.
God.
No. You got to think that, this is a very demoralizing thing to advocate for people when you're actually trying to get them better. And you're like, this is how I'm going to get you better. You've wasted all your veins in your arm and you don't want to sniff because that's, she said, too big of a jump. This is okay. The nose is a bridge too far, but
God.
This is not. I'm so confused. Now,
Maine wants to become the new liberal capital of the country or something. Hey, forget Portland, forget all the drugs shooting up in San Francisco, move to Maine.
Yeah.
Because you'll meet people like that.
Now, they do this because they think that if they don't, that users will do dangerous things in order to get the drugs anyway. So they don't believe that there's any way to really get them to stop. They think they need to just continue to give them this drip in a safe way. But is this preserving human dignity? I want to remind you of this clip from, it's not a clip, a bit from Michael Schellenberger's great book, San Francisco. And one person, I thought this was an addict who said this to his mom. Her name's Jackie Berlin. And she said that her son really liked Disney's Pinocchio when he was a kid. And he feels like when he is in San Francisco or other liberal places that give out all these drugs, that he is on the island, Pleasure Island. He says on one side of the street, there are people giving you food and clean needles. On the other side of the street are all the drug dealers. It's like getting all the candy and treats that you think you want. You think you're having fun, but little by little, it's taking away your humanity and turning you into something you were never meant to be. Like how the kids start turning into donkeys in Pinocchio and then end up trapped and in cages. So this is an addict giving what I think is a very brilliant analogy. Like, oh my God, I thought I wanted this. How did I get here? And all of a sudden I'm this. And in fact, we spoke to this mother about a year ago. And here's what she said about these programs where you're giving out drugs and giving access to drugs to addicts.
So right now there's a big push to open safe consumption sites, is what they call them.
Yeah.
And that's not a good place to put our resources. I'm asking for the resources to be put into more treatment and rehabilitation. There's about 2,500 homeless people on the streets in San Francisco, most of them because of drug addiction or mental illness. And we only have 37 detox beds in the entire city.
Okay, she's quite right. So what I'm pointing out here is that liberal cities have no desire to rehabilitate drug addicts. They just continue to push it on them. And when you talk about, well, let's rehab them, let's give them consequences for not testing clean, what the people who are responsible for the homeless industrial complex say is, oh no, that's racist. You know, we want body autonomy. They should be able to do whatever they want. And in fact, giving people drugs is called MAT, medically assisted treatment, and there's no standard for it. So like when you get an antibiotic, they take your height and weight and your age, and then they know how much to give you. That is not the case with MAT. Most providers are kind of going off what they think because there's no professional standard. And a lot of times that goes very wrong. This is according to the book Dope Sick, which later became a series, which was great work by this journalist, Beth Macy. And she said that overprescribing among doctors specializing in addiction treatment is rampant, according to several rural MAT patients that she spoke to, who unpacked how Suboxone doctors prescribed them twice as much of the drug they needed, fully knowing that they would sell some on the black market so that they could afford to return for their next visit. Others traded in their drugs for illicit heroin or pills. So this is when you're giving people these drugs, they go off and sell them a lot of times, and it's not making anything better. This book was written in 2018, so we've known this since, but we keep doing this. Oregon practices MAT and recently decriminalized drugs as well, and data has shown that that only helped accelerate drug deaths. So look at the number of overdose deaths. Now, we can attribute some of that to the pandemic, but also, again, these policies that are pushing drugs even more. And again, the only thing that's known to help people on drugs is a trifecta of treatment coupled with weaning them off drugs and not consistent access to drugs. So it has to be therapists, law enforcement, and experts, which is exactly what they found in Dope Sick, that the drug courts now remain the country's only model for preventing recidivism and relapse. So it's basically, again, the drug courts, and they have to test clean. And when they actually require that, people graduate these programs, and graduates are roughly half to a third less likely to return to crime or drugs than regular probationers, because you have expectations. You have to stay clean, and then you give them something to work for. So continuously giving these drugs is not, in fact, compassionate. And that's what the law is found in Amsterdam, in Portugal. We have a system for this, but we're told we can't do it by liberal government because it's racist. Not to mention that what happens to a community when you send out all these people that you've put on drugs? Well, guess what? Crime goes up. That's what happened when Oregon enacted ballot measure 110, which did decriminalize drugs. If you look at here where 110 happened, so Boise and Sacramento are sort of the test cases where drugs are still illegal. But in Portland and Seattle, when they were legalized, what you're seeing here is rates of property crime. So again, it's not only hurting the people that they're keeping on drugs, but it's hurting the community as well, who is not anyone who's not on drugs. So maybe that's why Oregon governor repealed this ballot measure in April and said, this is not working. So what we're seeing here is these liberal cities and their drug programs, their attempts to be compassionate are crumbling out from below us. And all this to say, it's not compassionate to enable continued drug use to the point where you can no longer find a viable vein, so you have to use your bum. But that is exactly what Maine is still doing. And I'm sure that sucks to know that your taxpayer dollars are going to that. But let's look at some of the amounts that Maine is using. Again, this whole program was over close to $500,000 in 2021. And they're not quite sure how much of it is going to boofing, but it's still very expensive. The council will oversee the administration of funding totaling $63 million through 2028. So Maine taxpayers, thanks for that. If you are grossed out by this, don't blame me, blame Maine.